Welcome to the MRII Data Analysis Award for 2025. I'm Jeff Lowe, a director at InfoTools, and I'm going to give you a guided tour of the Harmony platform itself and the project in Harmony that you'll be using for this challenge. Because you're here watching this video, I know that you've already registered. So I'll start off by pointing out that at any time, you can find out everything you need to know about Harmony through the knowledge base right here on the landing page. Tap on knowledge base and it opens up the knowledge base itself with quick start videos, everything you need to know about Harmony projects, how to discover insight through analysis, and so on. At any stage, you can also use the search field to search for any theme or keyword you want. Right, let's have a look at the analysis. You can start your analysis by clicking on the Start Your Analysis button, and that opens up the Harmony Explorer view. The Harmony Explorer view screen is split into three main parts. On the left-hand side, you've got your search field, so you can search for anything you want in the project. And then you've got the project itself, what we call the tree view. So you can see if I expand the tree view here, we've got all of the variables from the project for you to analyze. And then on the right-hand side are the drop zones into which you'll drag and drop items from the project tree. Now, the most important thing to understand about this project tree is that it is actually being built from two completely separate studies. There is the International Visitor Survey from New Zealand, which is really the core project for you to answer these challenges. And that is joined in this particular project by data from a completely separate survey called Global Advisor, which is a very long-standing tracking syndicated study run by Ipsos, which includes questions of people about their personal situation, what they think about the direction of the country, what topics are worrying them most in the world, etc. We put these two projects together because we think that the inclusion of the Global Advisor is going to help you find insights that will, we think, dig deep into the sorts of answers that are going to help you in the challenge that you're rising to here. Now, the first thing I want to do is do a time series analysis because these are both trackers. Although before I actually do the analysis, let me point out that there is a color coding system in Harmony that will help you discover which items are common to both of these projects and which are unique to just one. And that color coding can be seen here if we open up the year variable. Anything that is colored blue is unique just to one of the two projects. The two studies are the Global Advisor and the NZ International Visitor Survey. Let me just go back to the years. Anything that's colored green, on the other hand, is common to both projects. So in this year variable, I can tell you that the Global Advisor, we have data back to 2010, but for the International Visitor Survey, we only have data from 2013. All of the other periods are common apart from one exception, 2021, the COVID years, where the International Visitor Survey took a pause. So let's dive straight in and see how we can use this data in Harmony to start discovering things that are going to help you in this challenge. First things first, I'm going to do a time series analysis by dragging the year axis into the across drop zone. And I, first of all, want to track visitors to New Zealand from different countries. And to do that, I'm going to use visitors to New Zealand from top 10 strategic markets. I'll drag that into the down drop zone, and it gives me a table. Now, the first thing I'll do here is just scroll back to the beginning of the table so that we can see these periods where there is no data for the International Visitor Survey. One thing you may want to do to tidy the table up at any stage, you don't have to, but you may want to, is just highlight these by tapping on the column headers and choose hide. And that simply hides those periods for which there is no data. The table then automatically flicks back to showing us the most recent period. Let's now visualize this. Clicking visualize will automatically give you, in this case, a time series analysis because we've got a time series variable in the across part of the table. And as we look at it, it is very clear that our friends from across the Tasman in Australia dominate visitors to this country. especially straight after the COVID years, you can see the Aussie visitors started coming back first. So the nearly 3/4 of all visitors in that first year after we opened back up again were from Australia. By now, in 2025, things have pretty much normalised to back to the way they were pre-COVID. Now, another thing that we may want to do is highlight or select the most recent period, and when we do that, the interactive and context-specific modify menu gives us a rank option. And if I tap rank there, you can see it ranks the countries so that they're now ranked from country with the most visitors to New Zealand down to the least out of these top 10. So there's Australia, second is USA, then the United Kingdom, and so on. So this is an analysis that I want to keep for later. So I'm going to add this to a story, and stories are a really key part, I think, of what will help you do the best job in Harmony. Because whenever you find an analysis or do an analysis that you want to refer to later, then add it to a story. And there are some really very powerful things you can do with this data once it's in a story, and we'll be getting to that. So let's click the Add to New Story button. This analysis gets added to, it starts a brand new story here, and you'll see I've already made a few. I'm going to call this one My MRII Challenge. And so far, my MRII Challenge story has just this one item in it, the analysis that we've just saved. We'll come back to this later once we've got a few more items in here. Now, let's carry on with this analysis, because so far we've only chosen a variable or variables from the International Visitor Survey. We go back to the table by clicking Visualize and choosing Table. I'm now going to scroll down to the Global Advisor study, and I want to add job loss in the last 6 months to this analysis. I'll add it, and you'll see that it now is included in the bottom of this table. So bear in mind that this variable, job loss in the last 6 months, and the visitors to New Zealand, they are from two completely and utterly unrelated studies. But Harmony harmonizes the data so that it allows you to do these analyses, make these tables from two separate projects together in one place, which allows us to do things like this. Let's have a look at, for example, visitors from Australia and experienced job loss in the past 6 months, and we can visualize that. And there we get the data to see that it's kind of, there's some patterns there. However, what we've got to understand is that experienced job loss in the past 6 months, this is data for all markets, not just Australia. So let's go back to the table and make some changes that are going to allow us to directly compare the data from the Global Advisor, experienced job loss in the past 6 months, and the IVS study in New Zealand. And I'm going to do that by applying a filter from the common variables, and I'm going to go to geography and country, and let's apply a filter of Australia. Now you can choose any country you like, obviously here, and in fact you can do any analysis you want. These are just examples to show you the sorts of things that you can do. Now, of course, as soon as we apply a filter of Australia, it's going to filter out every other country of origin in visitors to New Zealand, and which is exactly what I want. But to make this table usable, I'm going to apply the suppress. So suppress zeros and nulls, and you'll see that it gets rid of all of the other countries and leaving just Australia. And of course, now the experienced job loss in the past 6 months is just for Australia, because our filter right here is Australia. Now, you'll notice that also applying the filter of Australia means that every single period for the visitors to New Zealand, it's 100%, because 100% of the visitors to New Zealand from Australia are from Australia. And what I'm going to do is change the percentage to the number of visitors. So one of the facts that you need to know about the IVS is that it is projected to actual visitor numbers. And so the numbers we see here are the estimate of the number of visitors that came to New Zealand, in this case from Australia. And in doing that, I can combine the incidence of job loss in Australia over these years with the number of visitors coming to New Zealand from Australia, and see if there's any patterns. Now, the most obvious way to look at this is with what we call a multi-axis graph. It creates two axes, one that shows the visitor count in blue here, and one that shows the incidence of job loss in Australia in red, so that we can see if there's any pattern between the two. In this case, I'm going to change the bars, the default blue bars, to a dotted line, because I think that's a better way to show time series in this case. And you can see if we exclude or ignore the all of the pattern breaking that happened during and immediately after COVID, there does actually look as if there is a pattern or an inverse relationship between visitor numbers to New Zealand from Australia and the incidence of having lost a job in Australia. Now, to focus in on this, not because these years are the most important to us, but because they show that there is a potential pattern here, I'm going to use the filter facility to filter out all the other years except 2013 to 2019. And I'll just add those years into my filter. I'll add them to my filter because remember, we already have Australia there. And we've now got an analysis which really highlights the potential pattern between these two variables. Remember, from two completely different studies. So I'm now going to add this to my IRR challenge story, and we will come back to that very shortly. Before we go back to our story and have a look at all the things we can do with the story, let's do a reset. You'll notice up here there are a whole bunch of buttons that will allow us to undo what the last thing we've done. We can export out to PowerPoint or Excel, or we can clear the analysis and reset the project tree, which is what I want to do, or we can just clear the analysis without resetting the project tree. I'm going to do both, because what I want to do now is I'm going to have age. I want to look at an age profile of variables from across these two studies, and the ones that I'm going to use is the age group. Now, because it's green, I know that this is common to both studies, so I can put age group down. And in the across, I'm going to add Australia. So we'll go from origin, top 10 strategic markets. We'll add Australia here. And I'm also going to do job loss in the last 6 months. Right here, and we'll add that across as well. We also need to have our geography, we also need to have our filter of Australia. And so what we have here is job loss in the last, we've got a age profile of people who have lost their job in Australia in the last 6 months, and we also have a age profile of visitors to New Zealand from Australia ever. And we can simply choose these two variables and visualize them. And what we now see is an age profile of visitors to New Zealand from Australia here on the left, and the age profile of those who in Australia have lost a job in the past 6 months. What I'd really like to do now is to look at these two age profiles overlapped, and I can do that simply by flipping the chart around and also by flipping the percentages, because we need to have the percentages in the correct direction. And here we go. So it's exactly the same chart, but just flipped around. So here is the job loss Australia in the last 6 months, age profile in blue, and that's visitors to New Zealand in blue, and job loss in the past 6 months. And they are kind of similar, except that there is a real drop in or a lot lower incidence of job loss among the 45 to 54-year-olds compared to the visitors in that age group to New Zealand. I show you this not because I think it's going to be particularly insightful for you and your challenges, but just to give you an example of how you can bring data together, another example, how you can bring data together from these two studies to generate insights or to see where the patterns might lie. I'm going to add this to the same project, the same story, excuse me, and having done that, now let's go to the stories and see all of the things that we can do in Harmony Stories. So we've now got these three analyses saved to the story. This was the very first one we did, showing the incidence of visitors to New Zealand from all of these countries, ranked by the most recent period. And you'll notice here I have a navigate button. So I can navigate through the views in the story just as you would navigate through the slides in a PowerPoint deck. So here is the second analysis I did, and then there is the third one right here, which is the age profile. Now, at any stage, I'll just go back to the first one. At any stage, there are a number of functions that we can perform on these story views. For example, just as we could with the analyses that we ran directly before we even saved them to a story, we could export them to Excel, either the view that we're looking at or the entire story. And if we do Excel, that simply exports the data behind the chart into an Excel table. Or we can export these to PowerPoint. In fact, let's do that. Let's export the story to PowerPoint so that you can see exactly how this works. Okay, and we've got an MRII challenge right there. And here it is. So here are the three charts that we saved to our story that are now exported to PowerPoint, and these are editable charts. So each of these items are completely editable, and the data that sits behind the charts has been exported to PowerPoint as well. So they're not just pictures, they are editable charts. And we're going to come back to this in a moment. In the meantime, we can also, if any of you are collaborating in this challenge or at any stage you're using Harmony, you can create a link which you can copy here to the story view. So you could share the story that you've created with anybody else who has authorized access to this project. Just copy the link, send it to them, and clicking on that link will take them straight to the story, which they can then read, and they can also take a copy of it and modify it too. Before you do that, you might want to add a comment, something like, wow, look at this. And if you do, when they open the story, they will see a little notification icon to say, there is a comment here for you to read. You can also, using the load story view, you can load any story that somebody sends you or that you've made previously back into the analysis part of Harmony and do some more things with it, add more filters or change it to another graph type, or just look at go from the graph to a table by clicking on the load story view. Now, the single most valuable thing I think you're going to find with the story view is this brand new feature of Harmony called Chat Harmony. Now, if you click on Chat Harmony, it will look at the analysis that you've saved into this particular story view, just this one view on its own, and it will generate insights from that analysis. This is using large language models through a feature or a program called Ipsos Facto, which in turn uses all of the large language models. In this case, you'll see at the very bottom in this fine print, we're currently using GPT 4.0 as the model. And what it's done is given us a description of this analysis. I won't read through it, but it has described exactly what it sees here in this chart. Now let's go to the next chart and do Chat Harmony with this one. Remember, this is the first of our analyses that had data from two different projects. Now, just like any large language model that you use, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. So by clicking on it here, this is unscripted. I don't know what Chat Harmony is going to come up with. Let's see, the dataset provides insights into two key metrics related to Australian visitors to New Zealand from 13 to 19. Yep. The total number of visitors and the percentage of those who experienced job loss in the past 6 months. The data is segmented yearly and highlights trends over the given period. So a pretty accurate description of what we're seeing. And it goes on to describe what it sees in this chart. Now, One really cool thing about this is that if we want to, if you like what you see here, or you want to use this as a start point for a report that you're putting together, we can just copy this text and we can go into Word and put that text into a Word document. Let's go match destination formatting. There you go. So it uses the standard formatting. And you see it's nicely formatted too with bolded headers. And I can also, if I wish, go back to my PowerPoint, choose the chart that Chat Harmony had analyzed, copy that, and paste that into my analysis. So I now have the chart in my Word document from Harmony, and I also have the Chat Harmony description of that chart. Now, bear in mind, like with any large language models, Chat Harmony is still learning, it's still being trained, it can get things wrong. So it really pays to check this carefully. And of course, you're unlikely to do well in this challenge if you're just simply copying and pasting stuff from Chat Harmony. The judges, I think, are going to be looking for your own human intelligence, if you like, to overlay on top of this. The idea here is that Chat Harmony can give you a really good start by doing the heavy lifting of describing what you're seeing. It's going to be up to you to come up with the insights. Let's just go back to Harmony, and we can do exactly the same thing for our next analysis. Now, let's just click on Chat Harmony to see what it comes up with here. Remember, this is the two age profiles, one from visitors to New Zealand from Australia, and one from people in Australia who have lost their job. Let's see what Chat Harmony says. And again, it has given us a description of it, which on the face of it, yep, it looks pretty accurate to me. So that is everything I wanted to show you. Remember, back at the landing page, let's just go back there now. Anytime you tap on the Harmony icon on the top left hand corner, it takes you back to the landing page. You can use the knowledge base here to ask any questions that you want of the knowledge base to help you with your analyses. And with that, I will wish you well and also have fun doing this. Goodbye.